The elevator doors slid open with a ding that echoed like a gunshot in Joseph's chest. He stepped out onto the 42nd floor of the glass tower. His tie loosened like a noose finally cut free, only to find his boss waiting, face twisted in that fake sympathetic scowl that said everything before the words even landed. "Joseph, it's not personal, Mr. Hargrove said, voice dripping with the kind of corporate poison that made Joseph's stomach churn. "But the boards decided we need to align with our values." Align with values? After 10 years of pulling all-nighters, schmoozing clients in smoke-filled bars, and pretending his weekends weren't spent holding hands with a man under Central Park stars. Now this? He didn't cry in the office. Not when they handed him the severance check. Not when co-workers averted their eyes like he'd suddenly grown horns. But as he rode the elevator down one last time, the weight of it all crashed in. The apartment lease he'd signed last month, the ring he'd been saving for in his sock drawer, the life he'd built brick by brick in this unforgiving city, all crumbling because someone had seen him kiss Joshua goodbye in the lobby last Friday. Fired for being gay. The words burned hotter than the coffee stain on his shirt from that morning's rush. Joseph hit the street, the November chill slapping his face like an accusation. New York didn't care about your sob story. It just kept hustling past you, indifferent as ever. He walked 3 blocks before ducking into a dive bar on 7th Avenue, the kind with sticky floors and neon signs buzzing like angry hornets. "Whiskey. Neat," he muttered to the bartender, a grizzled vet named Sal who nodded without asking questions. That's when his phone buzzed, Joshua's name lighting up the screen like a lifeline. "Babe, where are you? Everything okay at the pitch?" Joseph's thumb hovered, then typed, "Lost my job. They know about us." The reply came in seconds. "What the fuck? I'm coming to you. Stay put." Joshua arrived 20 minutes later, bursting through the door like a force of nature, tall, broad-shouldered, with that mop of curly blonde hair still damp from the jog over from his graphic design gig in Brooklyn. He was the artist type, all vibrant tattoos peeking from his Henley sleeves and eyes that crinkled when he laughed. But right now, those eyes were storm clouds. He slid into the booth, pulling Joseph into a hug that smelled of fresh ink and rain-slicked leather. "Tell me everything," Joshua whispered, his hand firm on Joseph's back, grounding him in the chaos. It spilled out then, the HR meeting, the whispers about company culture, the way Hargrove had avoided his gaze while citing some bullshit policy update. Joshua listened, jaw clenched, fingers tracing absent patterns on Joseph's palm under the table. "Those bastards," he growled when Joseph finished. 10 years, Joe. You built half their portfolio. This is illegal discrimination. Straight up." Joseph shrugged, the whiskey warming his veins but not his heart. "New York's got laws. Sure. But proving it? I'd be blacklisted before the ink dried on the lawsuit." Joshua's face softened, that romantic fire flickering back. "Then we fight smart. Or we walk away. Together. Remember that trip to the Keys we talked about? Screw the city. Let's just go." But walking away wasn't Joseph's style. He'd clawed his way up from a nothing town in Ohio, fresh out of community college with a business degree and dreams bigger than his bank account. New York had been his proving ground, the place where he'd first admitted to himself, then to a string of awkward dates, that he wasn't wired like the farm boys back home. His first boyfriend had been a barista named Alex, all fleeting passion and ghosting after a month. Then came flings, heartbreaks, until Joshua, steady, passionate Joshua, who'd sketched their first date on a napkin and framed it above his drafting table. They'd met at a Pride rally 3 years back. Joseph handing out flyers for a queer youth nonprofit. Joshua painting murals on the barricades. One shared glance amid the rainbow flags, and it was like the world tilted right. That night, they stumbled back to Joseph's cramped walk-up in Hell's Kitchen, the kind of place where the radiator clanged like a bad jazz band and the super only fixed leaks if you slipped him a 20. Joshua made pasta from a box, al dente enough to pretend it was gourmet, and they ate cross-legged on the futon, trading stories to drown out the hurt. "What if this is a sign?" Joshua said, twirling noodles on his fork. "You've been talking about starting that consulting firm forever. Freelance life. No more suits. Just you and your spreadsheets saving the world one queer startup at a time." Joseph laughed, bitter-edged. "With what capital? My 401k's vested. But after taxes." Joshua's eyes lit up, mischief sparking. "We'll figure it. We always do." The next morning brought the hangover of liquor and reality. Joseph scrolled job sites over burnt toast, each rejection email a fresh gut punch. By noon, he'd showered the defeat off and headed to the old office for his final exit interview. More formality than farewell. The lobby was a ghost town midweek, the marble floors echoing his footsteps like accusations. That's when he saw her. Marta, the receptionist who'd been there since dinosaurs roamed Midtown. 50-something, with a perm that defied gravity and an accent thick as borscht from her Polish roots. She'd always slipped him extra mints during long waits, called him sweetie when no one was listening. "Joseph, oy vey," she said, rising from her desk with arms outstretched. Her eyes, sharp as tacks, took in his rumpled shirt. "They tell me this morning. Bastards. All of them." He managed a smile, hugging her quick. "Thanks, Marta. For everything." She pulled back, glancing over her shoulder at the security cams, then pressed a small cardboard box into his hands. Brown, taped haphazardly, no bigger than a shoebox. "For you. From the lost and found." "But shoo. Not official." He frowned, turning it over. It was light, unmarked save for a faint coffee ring on the lid. "Marta. Take it home. Open alone," she whispered, her voice dropping to a conspirator's hush. "Sometimes, the universe leaves gifts where you least expect. Go. Before Hargrove's ghost haunts you." She winked, shooing him toward the revolving doors. Joseph tucked the box under his arm, the weight of it oddly comforting amid the sting of cardboard boxes being his new best friend. Packing up his desk had been the real kicker yesterday. Cubicle stripped bare like a crime scene. Back in the apartment, Joshua was at the kitchen table, laptop open to freelance gigs, his own coffee gone cold. "Any luck?" he asked, but his gaze snagged on the box. "What's that?" Joseph set it down, slicing the tape with a butter knife. "Weird goodbye from Marta. Said it's from Lost and Found." The lid creaked open, revealing nothing dramatic. No stacks of cash, no magic lamp. Just a jumble, a dog-eared notebook, yellowed with age, a Polaroid photo faded at the edges, a USB drive, sleek black, and a single key on a rusted ring, labeled Storage 7 in Sharpie. Joshua leaned in, curiosity piqued. "Mystery box? This is so you," turning unemployment into an episode of Scooby-Doo. Joseph plucked up the notebook first, flipping it open. The handwriting was neat, looping cursive, his own, from a decade ago. "Holy shit," he breathed. Pages of sketches, not financial models, but story outlines. A queer detective in 1920s Harlem, a romance between rival baristas in a storm-hit Seattle. He'd written this during his first brutal winter in the city, holed up in a sublet that smelled of mildew and regret, dreaming of something beyond ledgers. "I forgot about this," Joseph murmured, tracing a line about two men stealing a kiss under Eiffel Tower lights. Paris, a trip he'd never taken. Joshua's hand found his knee, warm and steady. "You were going to be the next great gay novelist. Remember, before the rat race swallowed you whole." The Polaroid next, Joseph at 22, grinning gap-toothed in a thrift store blazer, arms slung around a guy he'd dated for 2 weeks. Pre-Joshua, pre-everything. The USB hummed to life on his ancient laptop. Files of short stories, poems raw with longing, even a half-finished novel about a closeted architect rebuilding his life after a scandal. And the key nagged at him, puzzle piece out of place. "Storage 7, he said aloud. Joshua Googled it quick. Turns out, the old office building had basement units for employee overflow, mostly forgotten since the remodel 5 years back. "Wanna play Urban Explorer?" Joshua grinned, already grabbing his jacket. Joseph hesitated, trespassing on Hargrove and Associates property, but the box felt like fate's middle finger to his firing. A whisper that said, "You're more than their spreadsheet slave." They cabbed it back downtown, hearts pounding like teenagers. The lobby was dark, after-hours hush, but Marta had slipped him a backdoor code earlier. "For emergencies, sweetie." The stairwell smelled of dust and stale coffee, descending into a basement lit by flickering fluorescence. Unit 7 was there, padlocked but yielding to the key with a satisfying click. Inside, not gold, but better shelves of archived files. Sure, but tucked in the corner, a metal trunk stamped with Joseph's initials from his intern days. He knelt, breath catching as he pried it open. Manuscripts, printed and bound with rubber bands. Rejection letters from lit agents, polite but crushing. A leather journal thick with entries about his Ohio escape, the terror of coming out to his ma over a crackly phone line. And at the bottom, a manila envelope, "For when you're ready, JH." Joseph's pulse thundered. JH? Who? He tore it open. A letter, typed on yellowed paper. "Dear Joseph, if you're reading this, life's kicked you in the teeth. I wrote it 10 years ago, after my own pink slip, fired for the same damn reason, loving who I loved in a world that pretends tolerance. This is your work, kid. The stuff you hid because it scared you. Don't let them win. Burn the bridge, build the boat. And if you ever need a co-conspirator, find me at the Anchor, our old haunt. Joshua Hayes." Joshua Hayes. The name hit like vertigo. "Wait," Joseph stammered, showing the letter to his boyfriend, whose face had gone pale. "Your full name's Joshua. But Hayes? You're—" Joshua swallowed, eyes wide. "My uncle." "God, Joe, I never." Marta must have known. She worked there when he did. The pieces slammed together. Joshua had mentioned an uncle in publishing. A ghost story from family lore. Josh Hayes, the blacklisted writer who'd mentored young talents before vanishing into self-published obscurity after his own firing. But this Joshua, his Joshua, was no relation beyond coincidence? No. The dates didn't line up. Uncle Josh had passed 5 years back. A quiet heart attack in his sleep. Per family whispers. Yet the letter felt alive. A baton passed. "He believed in you," Joshua said softly, pulling Joseph close in the dim storage light. "Before we even met. This box. It's like he saw you coming." They hauled the trunk upstairs, Cab home buzzing with electric possibility. That night, over takeout Thai that burned just right, Joseph read aloud from the novel draft, halting at first, then flowing, words painting a world of hidden loves and defiant hearts. Joshua sketched as he listened, charcoal flying across newsprint. Joseph's profile, fierce and alive. Publish it, Joshua urged when the chapter ended. Self-pub, query agents, hell, start a Patreon. You're not done, Joe. Not by a long shot. The betrayal came swift, a knife in the ribs 2 weeks later. Joseph had dusted off the manuscript, polished it with Joshua's encouragement, and submitted to a small queer press in Brooklyn. Hope flickered, then shattered when an email pinged from an anonymous tip. Screenshots of his LinkedIn profile, doctored with slurs, circulated to industry contacts. Fired for cause unstable, litigious, the note read. Hargrove's doing, no doubt, a final fuck you to ensure blacklisting. Joseph's hands shook as he forwarded it to a lawyer friend, but the damage was done. Gigs dried up, even freelance pitches ghosted him. Worse, Joshua pulled away, not cold, but distant, buried in deadlines, coming home late with excuses about client revisions. Babe, it's just stress, he'd say, kissing Joseph's forehead like a platitude. But Joseph saw the shadows. The way Joshua's phone buzzed at odd hours, the fresh cologne lingering like guilt. One night, after a third ignored text during dinner, Joseph confronted him. Who's Ethan? He demanded, spotting the name in Joshua's recent calls. Joshua froze, fork midway to his mouth. Just a coworker. Collaborative project. The lie hung heavy. Joseph stormed out, walking the blocks to the Hudson, wind whipping tears from his eyes. Betrayal after the box, after the promises, it felt like the universe's cruel joke. Give with one hand, snatch with the claws. He ended up at the Anchor, the dive Uncle Josh had loved, a weathered pub in the village with rainbow flags faded from too many parades. The bartender, an old queen named Ruby with sequins for days, poured him a double. You look like you lost your way. Honey, she drawled. Joseph spilled it all, the firing, the box, Joshua's drift. Ruby listened, then slid a coaster his way. Love's a storm, kid. But storms pass if you don't drown first. Dawn found him on a bench by the river, manuscript pages clutched like armor. A text from Joshua, we need to talk. Please. Joseph replied, the Anchor. Now. They met there, raw and ragged, Joshua's eyes red-rimmed. It's not what you think, he started, but Joseph cut him off. Then what? You've been pulling away since the leak. Like you're ashamed. Joshua's face crumpled. No, God. No. It's me. The box. It stirred shit up. Uncle Josh's letter? I found his journals last year, after you moved in. He wrote about you, mentored you anonymously, believed you'd be his legacy. And now, with your book, I got scared. What if I can't measure up? What if loving you means watching you soar while I stay grounded? The confession cracked Joseph open. Not anger, but ache. Betrayal, yes, but born of fear, not malice. They talked till the pub opened, words weaving through hurts. Joshua's imposter syndrome from a childhood of hand-me-down dreams. Joseph's terror of abandonment echoing his dad's silent exit after the coming-out call. I need you, Joseph said finally, hand over Joshua's. Not the artist or the uncle's shadow. Just you. Joshua leaned in, forehead to forehead. Then let's build this together. Your book, my designs for the cover. Partners, for real. The climax built slow, a pressure cooker of additions and revisions. Joseph's novel, Shadows in the Ledger, hit self-pub shelves in spring. A tale of a fired accountant uncovering corporate corruption while falling for his whistleblower ally, laced with queer fire that burned pages. Caught fire on TikTok. Queer booktokers raving about the raw romance, the unapologetic humanism of men loving fiercely in a world that clips wings. Reviews poured in, a gut-punch reminder that stories save us. Sales climbed, podcasts called. But Hargrove lurked, a shadow suit filing a cease and desist, claiming the plot defamed their firm. The hearing was a circus. Fluorescent-lit courtroom in Lower Manhattan. Joseph in his best thrift blazer. Joshua sketching nerves away in the gallery. Hargrove's lawyer droned about fictional liberties, but Joseph's counsel, a fierce dyke named Lena, unleashed the truth. Emails proving the firing's bias. Marta's affidavit swearing the box was no theft but karma. This isn't defamation, Lena thundered. It's catharsis. The judge, a silver-haired woman with a pride pin on her robe, ruled in Joseph's favor, dismissed, with costs to the firm. As they exited into sunlight, reporters swarmed. Joshua pulled Joseph into a kiss, unashamed, cameras flashing like applause. Summer bloomed in their new rhythm. Joseph's book on bestseller lists, Joshua's freelance booming with cover commissions. They moved to a loft in Bushwick, walls alive with murals and shelves groaning under queer lit. No ring yet, too soon after the storm, but promises whispered in dawn light, hands intertwined like roots. One evening, as fireflies danced over the East River from their fire escape, Joseph pulled out Uncle Josh's letter, reading it anew. He was right, he said, voice thick. Burn the bridge. Build the boat. Joshua smiled, tracing Joseph's jaw. And we sailed, babe. Together. In the end, it wasn't triumph or tragedy, but grace, the quiet miracle of two men, scarred but standing, choosing love over the ledger's cold math. New York, for all its teeth, had given them this, a future unpacked from a forgotten box, wrapped in each other's arms. The afterglow of the courtroom wind faded faster than Joseph's bank balance on a bad month, but the momentum from shadows in the ledger carried them through. Launch parties blurred into signings at cozy indie shops in the village, where fans, young queers with dog-eared copies and stories of their own hidings, queued for hours. This book got me through coming out to my folks, one kid said, a lanky teen with blue-streaked hair and braces that flashed earnest. Joseph signed with a flourish, heart swelling. This was the humanism he'd chased, words as bridges over chasms of silence. Joshua thrived in the chaos, his designs turning heads, the cover, a silhouette of two men backlit by a crumbling skyline, had gone viral on Instagram, spawning fan art that flooded their DMs. Nights ended tangled in sheets, laughter echoing off exposed brick. But cracks lingered. Joseph's phone buzzed constantly now, agents sniffing for a follow-up, producers hinting at adaptations. Hollywood, Joshua joked one morning over avocado toast, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. You in LA, me sketching subways? Recipe for disaster. Joseph brushed it off, kissing the worry lines on Joshua's brow. We're solid. This is our win. But doubt gnawed, the betrayal's echo, that week of distance, had left trust threadbare. And then came the offer, a major publisher, 6 figures for the sequel rights, with a clause for creative consultation that screamed relocation to their Midtown offices. "It's not LA," Joseph's agent gushed over Zoom, "but it's the big leagues. Think Brokeback meets The Firm." Joseph stared at the contract PDF, pixels blurring. Big leagues meant stability, the lease, the savings for that ring, a buffer against the next storm. He didn't tell Joshua right away. Instead, he buried it under revisions, holing up at the anchor with Ruby as his sounding board. "Fame's a fickle bitch," she warned, polishing glasses with a rag that had seen better decades. "Chews up love like peanuts. You sure this ain't Hargrove's ghost, tempting you back into the grind?" Joseph sipped his whiskey, the burn familiar. "It's not that. Providing. After 10 years of scraping, I want to build something unbreakable." Ruby arched a painted brow. "Unbreakable's a myth, honey. Bendable? That's the trick." Joshua found out via a leaked tweet from the publisher. Congrats emoji and all. 10K likes by dinner. He came home quiet, takeout bags swinging like pendulums. "Midtown, Joe? That's the lion's den." They argued in the kitchen, voices rising over cooling pad thai. Joshua accusing him of chasing ghosts, Joseph snapping about security. "You think I want suits again? This is for us, health insurance. A down payment on a real place." Joshua's face hardened, old fears flashing. "Or it's you running back to what broke you." Afraid the box was a fluke, the words landed like slaps. Joseph stormed to the bedroom, slamming the door on Joshua's plea. "Wait, I didn't mean." Sleep came fitful. Dreams of storage units flooding with ink-black water, drowning his pages. Morning brought truce, coffee black as regret, apologies murmured over burnt eggs. "I'm scared," Joshua admitted, vulnerability cracking his artist facade. "Last time you climbed that ladder," it snapped. "And Uncle Josh. He warned in his journals about deals that steal your soul." Joseph pulled him close, the scent of charcoal and cologne grounding. "Then we negotiate together. No clauses, no chains." They did, hiring Lena for the contract scrub, turning the offer into a hybrid. Remote work, Brooklyn base, Joshua as official illustrator. The publisher balked, then bent, checks cleared. But success's shadow loomed larger. Fan mail turned obsessive, one letter, postmarked Ohio, ranted about promoting agendas, enclosed with a torn page from Joseph's book, smeared in red marker. Hate mail was old hat, but this felt personal, echoing his dad's Bible-thumping silence. Joshua burned it in the sink, flame dancing like defiance. "Fuel for the fire," he said, but his hands trembled. Fall deepened, leaves carpeting Bushwick streets in crimson confessionals. Joseph's sequel brewed, echoes unfiled, delving deeper into betrayal's anatomy, a protagonist grappling with love's fragile ledgers. Joshua contributed scenes, their collaboration a tango of edits and midnight inspirations. One night, post-revision haze, Joshua dropped to one knee by the futon, ring box velvet soft. Not the sock drawer savings, but a custom band, silver twisted with gold, engraved box of us. "Marry me?" he asked, voice rough. Joseph yes-ed through tears, the world narrowing to Joshua's grin. Wedding planning injected levity. A small affair at the Anchor, Ruby officiating in a gown that outshone the chandelier. Invites went to Marta's nursing home, Lena's firm, even an olive branch email to Ohio kin, radio silence. But expected. But conflict crested unbidden. A tabloid scoop, courtesy of a source close to the author, outing their engagement with pap shots from a park walk. Headlines screamed, "Fired XX gay revenge romance." From pink slip to altar? Hargrove's fingerprints. Surely retaliation's long tail. The backlash hit queer forums first. Then mainstream. Trolls decrying woke propaganda. Boycotts called on Joseph's books. Sales dipped. The publisher panicked, whispering pullbacks. Joseph spiraled, pacing the loft till floorboards groaned. "It's poison," he raged to Joshua, who sketched furiously to cope. "They can't let me win." Joshua set down his pencil, pulling him to the window overlooking the glittering sprawl. "They already lost. Look, we're here. Ring on your finger. Story in the world." That's the transformation. Climax brewed in a live podcast taping, a queer lit fest in Chelsea. Joseph was mid-anecdote, the box's magic, when a heckler stormed the stage. Mid-40s suit, face flushed with Hargrove's venom. "Liar!" he bellowed. Mike snatched. "You stole company secrets for that trash." Gasps rippled. Security loomed. But Joseph stood, heart hammering. "Stole? I earned every word. 10 years of silence for your values. That's the real theft." The man lunged, not with fists but a sheaf of papers, forged docs claiming plagiarism. Chaos erupted, mics cutting as scuffles broke out. Joshua vaulted from the audience, tackling the intruder with a roar that turned heads. Punches flew, Hargrove's lackey landing a glancing blow to Joshua's jaw before bouncers hauled him off. In the green room aftermath, ice on bruises, Joseph confronted the raw edge. "You could have been hurt," he whispered, dabbing Joshua's split lip. Joshua winced, then grinned bloody. "Worth it. For you." The incident went viral, flipping narrative. Stand with Joseph trended, celebs chiming in, Neil Patrick Harris retweeting with a fist emoji. The heckler confessed under pressure. Paid by Hargrove. Docs faked. Resolution cascaded. Lawsuit settled out of court. Hargrove's firm hemorrhaging clients in the PR fallout. Joseph's books surged. Echoes debuting at 3. But the real victory was quieter. The wedding, under October oaks in Prospect Park. 50 souls in rainbow finery. Ruby's vows wove humanism's thread. Love ain't ledger balanced. It's the messy sum of us. Vows exchanged. Rings glinting. Joseph and Joshua danced slow under string lights. City hum a distant hymn. Years blurred. 2 kids adopted. A brownstone in Bed-Stuy with a studio for Joshua's art. Joseph's 3rd book optioned for screen, Brooklyn shot. Queer-led. The box, shrine on the mantle, lid propped open like an invitation. On anniversaries, they'd riffle its contents, toasting Uncle Josh with whiskey neat. To transformations, Joshua would say, clinking glasses. Joseph, ever the romantic, added, and the man who handed it over. In America's vast, bruised heart, they'd carved a corner, dramatic, emotional, unyieldingly human. Winter's grip on New York was unrelenting that year, snow piling like unspoken regrets on fire escapes, turning the city into a muffled dreamscape. Joseph and Joshua's first holiday season as husbands unfolded in a haze of tinsel and tension. The adoption papers for little Mia, a 5-year-old firecracker with braids and a laugh like bells, had hit snags. Foster glitches, paperwork labyrinths, the system's indifference to queer families stung fresh. "They act like we're auditioning for sainthood," Joshua grumbled one night, stacking blocks with Mia on the living room rug while Joseph paced, phone glued to his ear with their social worker. But the box's legacy lingered, a talisman against despair. Joseph had started a non-profit off its inspiration, Queer Inc. Initiative, mentoring LGBTQ plus writers sidelined by bias. Applications flooded in, trans poets from Texas, by memoirists in Michigan, each story a spark against the cold. Joshua designed the logo, a quill bursting from a shattered ledger, and their brownstone became headquarters, walls papered in rejection letters turned art. "This is the real sequel," Joseph told a donor gala crowd, voice steady despite the knot in his throat. "Stories that rewrite the rules." Applause thundered, but backstage, doubt crept. A donor cornered him, silver-haired exec type, reeking of old money and older prejudices. "Admirable work," the man said, gripped too tight on Joseph's elbow. "But let's be frank, your personal life makes funding tricky. Boards get skittish." The words echoed Hargrove's venom, a betrayal's aftershock. Joseph extricated politely, but the seed rooted was success a facade. Fragile as fresh snow? Home brought balm. Mia asleep upstairs, Joshua in the kitchen brewing cocoa spiked with bourbon. "Heard the buzz," Joshua said, handing over a mug. "You okay?" Joseph leaned into him, the warmth seeping bone deep. "Just ghosts. Reminds me why we fight." They made love slow that night, bodies mapping familiar territories, whispers weaving promises. Come morning, Joseph channeled the unease into a blog post, raw, unfiltered, the cost of visibility. When ally means, as long as it doesn't cost me. It exploded, shares rippling through networks, donations doubling overnight. Spring thawed the ice, but unearthed older wounds. A call from Ohio, Joseph's ma, voice crackling over miles, tentative after years of Christmas cards only. "Saw your book on TV, Joey. Proud. Sorta. The sorta hung, laced with unspoken sermons." Joshua urged the visit. "Closure's a gift, babe." So they packed Mia and flew Midwest, the flatlands a stark contrast to Brooklyn's bustle. The farmhouse sagged under time's weight, Joseph's childhood room a museum of flannel shirts and faded posters. Ma hugged stiff, pa absent as ever, golfing in Florida. Rumor had it. Dinner was pot roast and politeness, Mia's chatter a buffer. But post-bedtime, over weak tea, Ma cracked, "We prayed for you, son. That lifestyle. 'S a choice, ain't it?" Joseph's gut twisted, the same script that had driven him east at 18, suitcase heavy with secrets. Joshua squeezed his hand under the table, silent sentinel. "Ma," Joseph said, voice even, "It's not a choice. It's me. And Joshua, he's family. Mia's dad." Tears welled in her eyes, not malice but ache. "I lost you once. Don't want to again." The confession bridged something. Hugs lingered longer next morning. Promise to call weekly. Not perfection, but progress, humanism's slow stitch. Back in New York, conflict simmered domestic. Mia's school hunt unearthed biases. Private academies with traditional values. Public ones overcrowded. One open house. A headmaster's wife side-eyed Joshua's tattoos. "We celebrate diversity, of course, but structure matters." Rejection letters piled, mirroring Joseph's lit days. Joshua snapped first, storming out mid-tour. "Fuck their structure, we'll homeschool if we have to." Joseph reeled him in over ice cream in the park. Mia oblivious on swings. "We're not them," he soothed. "We choose joy." Joy manifested in small rebellions. Family picnics in Central Park. Joshua's murals popping on community walls. Vibrant scenes of queer families thriving. Tags reading ink over ignorance. Joseph's nonprofit ballooned. Partnerships with publishers for mentorship grants. But climax loomed in a custody scare. An ex-foster parent contesting the adoption, citing unstable home with homophobic affidavits unearthed from online rants. Court dates loomed. Lena on speed dial, stress carving hollows under their eyes. The hearing was a pressure cooker. Family court in Queens. Air thick with fluorescent hum and whispered judgments. The contestants' lawyer painted them as activist parents, flashing Joseph's book covers like scarlet letters. Joshua testified first. Voice steady. Mia's our world. We chose her, brown skin, boundless heart, because love doesn't discriminate. Mia, in pigtails and a tutu, drew pictures for the judge, stick figure family under a rainbow sun. Joseph's turn cracked him open, the box story, firing's fire, how writing forged their path. We didn't choose this fight, he said, tears unashamed. It chose us. And we'll shield her with everything. The judge, a no-nonsense Latina with a gavel like thunder, ruled swift. Adoption finalized. Contestants' claims baseless. Cheers erupted in the hallway. Lena popping champagne minis, Mia twirling in victory. That night, brownstone aglow with takeout feast. Joshua raised a glass. To unbreakable, but Joseph, buzzed on relief, added rye, bendable. That's our superpower. Summer's heat wave baked the city, but their rhythm held vacations to the Keys finally. Turquoise waves washing old salts. Mia built sandcastles crowned with seashells. Joseph and Joshua stealing kisses in hammocks. Rings glinting sun-kissed. Back home, Joseph's fourth book brewed. Roots in the rubble. A family saga of queer resilience. Dedicated to the boxes we unpack. Together. Launches drew crowds. But Joseph savored the quiet. Storytime with Mia. Joshua's sketches framing their walls. Betrayal's ghost visited once more. Subtle. A non-profit board member. Ambitious climber named Trent. Leaking grant proposals to competitors for a cut. Funds dipped. Trust eroded. Joseph confronted in a coffee shop showdown. Voice low thunder. This work's sacred, not a ladder. Trent slunk away. Ousted. But the sting lingered. Joshua held him through the rage. We rebuild. Always. By fall, the non-profit stabilized. Stronger. Trent's folly, a cautionary mural Joshua painted in the office. Phoenix from ashes. Holidays circled back. Ma visiting for Thanksgiving. Tentative bridges holding. She held Mia close. Whispered prayers now laced with acceptance. As snow dusted again, Joseph reflected from the stoop. Joshua's arm around him, Mia's laughter inside. The box, dusted on the shelf, whispered, transformations not endpoint, but ever-unfolding page. Autumn's palette painted Brooklyn in golds and crimsons, but for Joseph and Joshua, the season carried undercurrents of change, the kind that rustles like leaves before the wind shifts. Mia started kindergarten, her backpack comically oversized, first-day jitters melting into playground conquests. Daddy Josh drew me a monster repellent, she announced at pickup, waving a crayon talisman. Joshua beamed, but Joseph caught the weariness in his slouch. Commissions piling. Deadlines chafing against dad duties. Tag team's tough, Joshua admitted over bedtime stories, voice muffled in the rocker. Love it, but damn. Joseph nodded, guilt flickering. His nonprofit tour across the Midwest had him home late too often. suitcases half unpacked. Roots in the Rubble had hit shelves to acclaim, Oprah's book club nod sending it stratospheric. But the spotlight demanded keynotes in Chicago, panels in San Francisco. "We're drifting," Joseph confessed one crisp evening, raking leaves in Prospect Park while Mia chased squirrels. Joshua paused. Rake mid-sweep. "Not drifting. Orbiting. But yeah, need to recalibrate." Recalibration came via crisis. Joshua's gallery show, a solo exhibit of queer family portraits at a Soho space, vandalized overnight. Murals slashed, canvases keyed, slurs spray-painted in dripping red, pervert parents. Police reports filed, insurance claims launched, but the violation cut deep. Joshua arrived at the loft shell-shocked, paint under his nails like blood. "They got my Mia piece," he choked, collapsing into Joseph's arms. Mia's portrait, her in a crown of wildflowers, flanked by her dad's, lay in tatters on the loft floor. Rage boiled, but Joseph channeled it, a press conference outside the gallery, flanked by allies from the initiative. "This isn't attack on art," he declared, cameras whirring. "It's on our families. But we rise louder, brighter." Art over hate trended. Fundraisers poured in for repairs, celebs commissioning replacements. Joshua repainted through tears, each stroke defiance. The show's reopening drew throngs. Mia unveiling the restored piece with a pint-sized speech. "Monsters can't touch love," critics raved. Sales funded a scholarship in her name. Yet the incident unearthed fractures. Joshua withdrew, sketching solitary in the studio till dawn, bourbon bottles multiplying. "It's not just the vandal," he admitted during a raw therapy session. "Their first joint, post-adoption right. It's the fear. What if they come for her? For us?" Joseph gripped his hand across the circle. The counselors gnawed gentle. "Fear's valid. But hiding feeds it." Sessions unearthed layers. Joshua's buried trauma from Uncle Josh's blacklisting. The family whispers of cursed creatives. Joseph's own, Ohio's echoes, the firing's scar tissue. Healing flowed slow. Intentional date nights reclaimed. No phones, just dive bars and dances. One night at the Anchor, Ruby spinning tales of Stonewall skirmishes. Joshua proposed a pact, sabbatical. 6 months. No tours, no shows. Just us, road trip across America, roots hunting. Joseph's heart leaped. The Keys' dream expanded. Queer odyssey. Mia thrilled at the itinerary. Grand Canyon hikes, New Orleans jazz, Joshua's sketches chronicling it all. The road unspooled like a novel's spine, RV rumbling from Brooklyn to the Badlands. Conflicts dotted the map. A motel clerk in Kansas eyeing their rings with pursed lips, denying the double bed. "House policy," she lied. Joshua's temper flared. "Call your manager." But Joseph diffused, booking elsewhere. "Pick battles," he murmured later, under star-pricked skies. Deeper cuts came at a Dakota diner, locals muttering over coffee, one burly type cornering Joseph in the lot. "City boys preaching? Take your agenda elsewhere." Fists clenched. But Joshua appeared, Mia on his hip like shield. "We're just passing through, sir." Like Grace. Grace tested in the Southwest, where Joseph's ma joined for a leg, flying into Albuquerque, her presence a mending thread. Awkward at first, ma fussing over Mia's braids, Joshua's tattoos earning side-eyes. But Canyon's carved confessions, over campfire esmores, ma admitted, "I was wrong, Joey." Feared losing you to the devil, but lost you to silence instead. Hugs healed humid, tears mixing with dust. Joshua sketched the trio at sunset, Ma's hand on Joseph's shoulder, a portrait of fragile peace. Climax crested in California, Big Sur cliffs dropping to Pacific roar. A writer's retreat invite pulled Joseph to a cliffside lodge, but en route, the RV hydroplaned on rain-slick highway, flipping into a ditch. Time fractured. Metal screech. Mia's scream. Joshua's arm wrenching to shield her. Joseph crawled free, gashed and gasping, dialing 911 with blood-smeared fingers. Ambulance wailed, our lights blurring, fractures for Joshua, ditches for all, but alive. In the sterile wait, holding Joshua's hand foredripped, Joseph whispered, no more roads without you. Recovery anchored them stateside. Brownstone, a nest of pillows and podcasts. The accident's echo? A pivot? Joseph's keynote circuit paused. Focus sharpening on local, initiative workshops in Bronx schools. Joshua's community murals anti-vandalism fortified. Betrayal surfaced subtle. A retreat organizer, spurned for the crash absence. Bad-mouthing Joseph online. Flaky activist. All hype. Screenshots stung. But Joshua countered with a thread. Raw RV wreck photos. Captioned real lives over lights. Backlash boomeranged. Support surging. Fall returned. Leaves crunching under heeled steps. Mia's school play, her as a fierce woodland sprite, drew full house. Ma in the front row clapping loudest. Post-curtain. Joseph and Joshua slipped out for a walk. Rings catching lamplight. That box, Joseph mused. It didn't just transform my future. Ours. Joshua nodded, pulling him close. From fired to family. Worth every scar. Winter whispered in. Holidays heartfelt. Ma hosting turkey in Ohio. Bridges bidirectional now. Joseph's fifth book simmered. Highway Hearts. Road trip tales of queer endurance. Launches intimate. Fans fewer but fiercer. The Loft. Once transient. Rooted deep. Mia's laughter soundtrack. Joshua's easel ever blooming. In America's mosaic, they'd etched their tile. Dramatic arcs bent but unbroken. Emotions raw as first drafts. Romance a constant revision upward. The calendar flipped to a new decade. Snow blanketing the brownstone in insulating hush. But inside, Joseph's world thrummed with the pulse of purpose refined. Highway Hearts had carved its niche. Not bestseller blaze, but steady glow. Anthologized in college syllabi. Sparking campus clubs where out kids found voice. The initiative evolved too. Satellite centers in 5 states. Virtual hubs for rural isolates. Each a beacon funded by book royalties and Joshua's licensing deals. Empire of Empathy. Joshua teased over breakfast burritos. Mia giggling at the hyperbole. Her front teeth newly gapped. Yet prosperity's underbelly stirred unease. A documentary crew pitched. From pink slip to page turner. Profiling Joseph's arc. Flattering. Lucrative but invasive. Spotlights probing family corners. Joshua balked. Are scars on Netflix? Mia's too young for trolls. Debates simmered, Joseph seeing platform for advocacy. Joshua guarding hearth. Compromise landed. Limited series. Pseudonyms for kids. Focus on the box's alchemy. Filming invaded. Mics in the loft. Reenactments of the firing that dredged ghosts. Hargrove. Long retired to Florida obscurity. Declined interview. His silence the loudest apology. Betrayal brewed from within Trent. The ousted border. Resurfaced via a scathing Substack. The queer industrial complex. How Joseph last name profiteers off pain. Accusations flew. Grift via grants. Token mentorships. It gained traction in edgelord circles. Death threats pinging Joseph's inbox. Sleepless nights followed. Joshua barricading the door with extra locks. Mia sensing storms in hushed tones. Bad dreams again. Papa? She'd ask, climbing into their bed with stuffed unicorn. Joseph held her close, whispering tales from the box. Once, a key opened more than doors. It unlocked tomorrows. Climax ignited at a national lit fest in D.C. Keynote slot hard won. Joseph took the stage. Lights hot. Crowd electric, hundreds of faces. Mirrors of his younger self. Midway through the box origin. Hecklers disrupted. Trent front row. Megaphone blaring. Flanked by sign wavers. Fake saint. Security swarmed. But chaos cascaded. Scuffle spilling to aisles. A thrown water bottle clipping Joseph's podium. Heart pounding. He didn't flee. Mic gripped. He pivoted. This is the fight Uncle Josh warned of. Not for fame, for the kid in Ohio. Scared to whisper his truth. Join me, or get out of the way. The room split, boos. Then cheers, swelling title. Trent dragged out. Charges pending. His manifesto debunked by leaked emails proving sabotage. Post-fest fallout? Vindication. Initiative donations quadrupled. Allies mobilizing counter-narratives. Joshua, watching live stream from home, texted my hero. Home safe? Joseph replied mid-airport rush. Always. Love you. Resolution rippled familial. Ma. Now a conference regular. Co-led an Ohio chapter. Her sermons softened to sermons of welcome. Church pews filling with prodigal returns. Pa's ashes scattered in the keys during a family sale. Forgiveness murmured to waves. Mia bloomed. Soccer star with a sketchbook habit. Her first zine. Monster Hunters United. Self-pubbed at 10. Proceeds to the initiative. Like Papa Joe's box, she beamed. Hugging copies. Years layered like patina on silver. Joshua's retrospective at MoMA. Murals immortalized. Joseph's tenure at NYU. Lecturing on narrative as resistance. They mentored a cohort. Trans essayist from Tulsa. Non-binary poet in Philly, echoes of their start. Anniversaries marked with anchor toasts. Ruby's health fading but spirit sequined. On their 10th, Joshua unveiled a final gift. A custom box, ebony inlaid, filled with Mia's drawings, Ma's letters, their vows yellowed. Our legacy, he said, eyes crinkling. Joseph kissed him slow. Infinite chapters, the ending, no tidy bow, but humanism's embrace, lives intertwined, scars as constellations. In America's grand, flawed tapestry, Joseph and Joshua wove threads of drama's fire, emotion's depth, romance's anchor, proving one box, one love, could redraw horizons. From fired ashes, a future flourished. Not perfect, but profoundly theirs.